Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost. Let's begin with updates from the Israel-Hamas war. An Israeli airstrike killed 20 Palestinians and wounded 55 others in Rafah in southern Gaza Strip on Thursday. That is according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Injured children, women and men were rushed to the Kuwaiti hospital in Rafah. People searched through rubble for survivors while ambulances struggled to reach some of the injured. Three people were killed and 6 injured in another strike in central Gaza's Maghazi refugee camp. The recent strikes have pushed the death toll in the enclave past 21,000. Israel's actions in Gaza have now shifted to the central parts of the strip. Over the past few days, Israeli forces ordered civilians to evacuate areas in central Gaza. A Palestinian was shot at by Israeli security forces in West Bank. This was after he stabbed 2 security personnel at a checkpoint between West Bank and Jerusalem. The Israeli police said that the attacker stabbed 2 security personnel on duty after stopping his vehicle near the inspection station. A Hamas official has said that it is open to any proposal to completely stop Israel's actions in Gaza. Osama Hamdan said, and I quote, "We are not interested in a partial or temporary cessation of aggression." He reiterated Hamas's stance that the remaining hostages will only be released after a permanent ceasefire is implemented. Reports say several countries are now stepping back from United States' initiative to respond to the Houthis in the Red Sea. Last week, US launched a joint patrol force with 10 countries to protect commerce on the trading route. But just over a week after the launch, multiple US allies do not want to be associated with it publicly or at all. Italy and Spain issued statements appearing to distance themselves from the maritime force. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have proclaimed no interest in the venture. Meanwhile, the report added that India too is unlikely to join the US operation. New Yorkers gathered for a silent protest yesterday calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The silent procession was meant to mourn the thousands of children killed since the Israeli military began fighting in the Gaza Strip. The protest was summoned by a group called Jewish Elders for the Palestinian Freedom. Demonstrators gathered in Bryant Park and marched through Times Square carrying shrouded baby models. On to other news, the US state of Maine has become the second state to disqualify former President Donald Trump from the state's ballot in next year's presidential primary election. Maine's decision comes over Trump's alleged role in the 2021 Capitol riots. The Secretary of State of Maine said that Trump incited an insurrection when he spread false claims about voter fraud in the 2020 elections. Gun violence and shooting incidents have killed more than 42,000 people in the United States this year. This is according to the latest data released by the Gun Violence Archive that tracks firearm deaths and injuries. According to the data, 650 mass shootings occurred across the United States this year. It adds that among the shooting victims, nearly 1,700 were minors. US ranks first in the world in terms of both individual gun ownership and cases of mass shooting incidents. The US military's secretive robotic space plane took off from the state of Florida on its 7th mission. The Pentagon has not disclosed much about the mission. The mission marks the very first time the plane has been launched on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. The rocket is capable of delivering the plane into a higher orbit than ever before. President Nicolas Maduro ordered Venezuela's armed forces to conduct defensive exercises in the Eastern Caribbean. This comes after the United Kingdom sent a warship towards Guyana's territorial waters. Maduro has slammed the deployment of British warship. He said it breaches the spirit of an agreement reached between Venezuelan and Guyanese authorities. Earlier this month, Guyana and Venezuela agreed to avoid the use of force in border dispute over the oil-rich Essequibo region. According to a report, China pressured popular Taiwanese rock band Mayday to make pro-China comments ahead of Taiwan's key elections next month. Beijing reportedly asked Mayday to publicly voice support for its claims that Taiwan is a part of China. However, the rock stars did not agree to the request. Tony Chung, the former leader of Hong Kong pro-independence group, has said he's fled to Britain. And he says that he's formally applied for political asylum there. In 2021, Chung was sentenced to prison under the draconian national security law imposed by China. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol visited a frontline military unit yesterday. During the visit, Yoon advised the troops to retaliate immediately if there was any provocation from North Korea. This comes as tensions heat up in the Korean peninsula. Yesterday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un also ordered Pyongyang to accelerate war preparations. In climate, China's Central Meteorological Observatory has issued a red alert for heavy fog and haze today. This is the first since 2017. According to a flight tracker app, more than 600 flights were delayed in the country. The severe weather is attributed to high humidity and poor atmospheric conditions. The Weather Department predicts the situation to persist for over 24 hours. Dense fog continues to blanket major cities across northern India, impacting air travel and railways. Highway roads and buildings were also completely shrouded by thick fog. The Indian Meteorological Department predicts that the condition will remain the same till January 2nd. A red alert has been issued for the regions of Punjab, Haryana and Delhi for today and an orange alert for tomorrow. Hungary's capital city of Budapest is experiencing unprecedented winter floods. The river Danube has reached a decade-high level of 6.93 meters. Researchers say the climate change is leading to early winter floods in the region. According to the Water Authority, last time the Danube's level exceeded 6 meters was in 1987. Netherlands is bracing for potential flooding as heavy rainfall swelled rivers, due to which floodplains remained underwater. Floodplains is the land beside a river that regularly becomes flooded when there's too much water in the river. Emergency workers in the city of Deventer have placed sandbags along the city walls to prepare for the river water rushing into the city. Storm Gerrit has claimed the lives of 3 people in northern England after a car fell into a river. UK's Scotland and northern England region have been badly hit by the storm. The harsh weather conditions disrupted transport and caused power outages in the region. As per predictions by the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, northern and western Australia might face an intense heat wave over the New Year's weekend, with temperature exceeding over 45 degrees Celsius, while the country's east part might be hit with thunderstorms. December to February season in Australia is affected by the El Nino phenomena, which can cause extreme weather events. Brazil has intensified efforts to combat illegal gold mining in the Amazon rainforest. According to reports, the illegal mining is spread from indigenous lands into government-protected conservation areas. Federal police has joined hands with government's Biodiversity Conservation Agency, ICM Bio, to halt illegal operations in the region. They've successfully destroyed several camps and seized equipment. President Lula aims to end deforestation and illegal mining by 2030. On to business and tech news. Google has agreed to settle a lawsuit in the US that seeks at least $5 billion. The lawsuit accuses the tech giant of secretly tracking the internet use of millions of people who thought they were browsing privately. The plaintiffs allege that Google Analytics tracked the activity of users even when they switched to the incognito mode. However, Google says incognito mode does allow users to browse privately. Social media platform X has failed to block a law implemented by the US state of California. The law requires social media companies to publicly disclose how they moderate certain content on their platforms. In September, X sued California to undo the content moderation law. It argued that the law violated its free speech rights. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's loss in the social media advertising space has apparently been LinkedIn's gain. Job posting site LinkedIn has seen a jump in its ad revenue. Yearly ad revenue at LinkedIn rose by 10% to nearly $4 billion in 2023. This comes as more companies jumped ship from Musk's X amid reports of rising hate speech on the platform. X has seen itself mired in controversies ever since Musk took over last year. And Elon Musk's troubles do not stop with X. There are new issues with his electric vehicle company Tesla. 2 US senators have written to Musk calling on him to recall any steering and suspension parts that pose a safety risk. This comes after a report said Tesla has repeatedly blamed its drivers for frequent failures of components which it has long known were defective. Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi has entered the electric vehicles market. It unveiled its first EV sedan SU7 yesterday. Xiaomi's chief executive Li Jun said the car would have super electric motor technology. This would make it capable of delivering acceleration speeds faster than Tesla and Porsche EVs. Xiaomi added that it aims to become one of the world's top 5 automakers. Plane maker Boeing finds itself in murkier waters. This is after the discovery of potential new issue with the 737 MAX planes. Boeing has urged airlines to inspect their 737 MAX airplanes. This is for a possible loose bolt in the rudder control system. The US Federal Aviation Administration has said that it is monitoring the targeted inspections and will consider additional action based on any further discovery. Hong Kong-based carrier Cathay Pacific has cancelled some of its year-end flights. The move comes as a precaution after illnesses among its pilots have depleted its staff. Cathay has axed around 11% of its Hong Kong departures scheduled for today. Services affected include flights to Sydney, Delhi, Taipei, Shanghai and Singapore. An Indian government agency has said that 9 global crypto exchanges are operating illegal in the country without complying with the local Anti-Money Laundering Act. This includes crypto firms like Binance and Kraken. The agency has issued show-cause notices to all 9 firms. It has asked the IT ministry to block the company's websites. Indian firm Firstpost is aiming to raise $218 million through an initial public offering. This is almost a third of the $700 million that it had originally targeted. Firstpost is India's biggest e-commerce platform for mother and baby products. The startup is eyeing a valuation of about $4 billion, down from its last year's target of $6 billion. European property company Signa has said that its 2 key divisions are filing for insolvency. Signa Prime Selection filed for a restructuring in a Vienna court yesterday. Meanwhile, Signa Development Selection will file for it today. This has made Signa the biggest casualty so far in Europe's real estate crisis. Moving on to sports, and let's start with cricket. South Africa beat India by an innings and 32 runs in the first test match. India were bowled out for 131 runs after failing to take a lead. Nandre Berger took 4 wickets for the Proteas. Dean Elgar was declared player of the match for scoring 185 runs in the first innings. Australia women beat India by 6 wickets in yesterday's one-day international. India batted first and scored 282 runs in 50 overs. Australia chased down the target in the 46th over. Phoebe Litchfield and Elise Perry both scored half-centuries. Australia now leads the 3-match series 1-0. In football, West Ham United stunned Arsenal 2-0 last night. Thomas Suchek scored in the 13th minute for West Ham. In the second half, the Hammers took the lead on a goal from Konstantinos Mavropanos. This was the first time in the Premier League season that Arsenal lost a match at home. Brighton beat Tottenham Hotspur 4-2 in last night's Premier League match. Joao Pedro starred after he scored a double for Brighton. With the win, Brighton are now ranked 8th in the league. They're just 1 point behind Manchester United. As per reports, Italian giants Inter Milan say they're on the verge of bankruptcy. This comes after 10 board members of Inter were paid their annual compensation. The club's CEO was also paid less in comparison to the previous year. Inter Milan's current owner is Chinese firm called the Suning Group, which is reportedly facing financial difficulties due to China's economic slowdown. Cameroon have called up Manchester United goalkeeper Andre Onana for the Africa Cup of Nations. Earlier, Onana had walked down on Cameroon after a row at last year's World Cup in Qatar. Now the goalkeeper will be back in the national squad. The Africa Cup of Nations will be underway from January next year. In tennis, Rafael Nadal was seen practicing on the court in the Australian city of Brisbane. The former world number one is returning to the sport after a gap of almost a year. Nadal had to take a break from tennis after suffering from a back injury. He will make his return to the court for the Brisbane International Tournament. Meanwhile, Karolina Muchova has pulled out of the Australian Open tournament. This comes as Muchova continues to suffer from a wrist injury. World number 8 Muchova has been away from the court since October after injuring her wrist during the WTA finals. The prize money at the Australian Open has been increased by a whopping 13%. The total prize pool is now worth almost $60 million. The two singles champions will each pocket over $4.5 million. Last year, the winners of the Australian Open won close to $3 million. In basketball, the Boston Celtics beat the Detroit Pistons 128-122 in overtime last night. This is now the 28th consecutive loss for the Pistons. They have now tied the league for the longest losing streak of all time. The other team which shares the record is 2014 team of the Philadelphia 76ers. In entertainment news, South Korean police officials defend the intense questioning of the late actor Lee Sun-hyun over drug allegations. Officials were probing the Parasite actor for alleged use of marijuana. Authorities say the investigation was being undertaken with Lee's consent. Lee's death raised questions about the harsh nature of the probe. He was found dead in his car in Seoul on the 27th of December. Actor Pierce Brosnan is facing charges for trespassing into restricted areas of the Yellowstone National Park in the United States. The incident reportedly happened in November when he was filming for a project near the national park. The court has classified the offence as petty. Brosnan is scheduled for a hearing on January 23rd next year. Singer Cher has been given the temporary conservatorship of her 47-year-old son Elijah Blue Allman. The singer has filed for a conservatorship citing Elijah's struggles with severe mental health and substance abuse. Two of Elijah's siblings also reportedly nominated Cher as their conservator. Singer Ellie Goulding feels that the music industry has changed for better after the Me Too movement. She said in a podcast that music labels are now taking efforts to protect younger artists. The labels provide them with a counselor to share their experiences as up-and-coming musicians. Goulding reflected on the uncomfortable experiences that she faced with some of the male producers when she began her career. Singer Camila Cabello is dropping hints about her creative endeavors in 2024 on Instagram. The singer recently teased about working on some new music which might release next year. She shared snaps from her ongoing recording sessions. The pop star's previous album, Familiar, was released in April 2022. Filmmaker Ridley Scott's film Napoleon has crossed the $200 million mark at the global box office. Despite mixed critical reviews, the film got a strong international contribution of over $140 million. The biographical epic stars Joaquin Phoenix and explores Napoleon's rise to emperor. Meanwhile, Timothée Chalamet's Wonka has surpassed $100 million in North America and has crossed over $270 million globally. The film is a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which explored the origins of the legendary candy maker. Wonka released on December 8th world over. Actor Gary Oldman revealed in an interview that his portrayal of Sirius Black in Harry Potter films was mediocre. He thinks that he might have played the character differently if he had known the future story. Oldman highlighted the impact of reading the books before playing his role, just the way his co-star Alan Rickman had done. Actor Jessica Chastain squashed rumors about her casting for the upcoming adaptation of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She clarified in an interview that there is zero possibility of her starring in the next Netflix film adaptation. She expressed feeling sorry for her fans who wanted to see her in the film. Actor Hannah Whittingham calls Tom Cruise one of the loveliest, encouraging, positive and inspiring human beings. She said this on a British cooking show. Whittingham says she has no time for anyone speaking negatively about Cruise. The actor revealed spending 5 days with Cruise on the sets of their next movie. Both the actors will be seen in the upcoming Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning sequel.